welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logun, and we've got a lot of news to cover today. So tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I am. If you're listening to this, believe it or not, this isn't actually something that I recorded during the weekend, which I usually do, which means whatever just got announced over at Xbox on the Xbox Showcase, you're going to have to wait for me to talk about that next weekend. But that's okay, because this week I have a very special episode. This is an interview that I got to do with Mike Chapman, creative director over at Rare. He was nice enough to take some time with me in the early morning over there in the UK to chat about Sea of Thieves, its story, the progress that they're making with the seasons and content, what could be in store for the future of Sea of Thieves, and is there a Sea of Thieves 2? All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They are the ones that are sending me to Summer Games Fest this weekend. If it wasn't for their help, I would not be able to join Luke Lore of the Insipid Ghost over at the Xbox Expansion Pass to be able to help cover a lot of the games. We have 20 plus appointments. I believe, I can't even tell you. There's a lot of stuff that got announced today at the PlayStation State of Play that we are going to potentially have hands-on for, or at least be able to go to places where people probably do have hands-on for. But I'm going to be trying to record as much as I can. I'm probably going to be live streaming over my Twitch service or Twitch account, what I can and what I can't. There is a lot of stuff that is technically embargoed for the weekend. But I want to thank the patrons, because if it wasn't for their help and their support by going over to patreon.com/Keelhauled podcast to show their love, I would not be able to do this so easily. It would take a lot more, and I may not even have been able to do it, but it's because of them that I am able to. So because of that, I want to make sure that I call out their names. So thank you to A Chick, L Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chateau Neuf, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Carl Embo, Kylia the Aficionado, Kyler B, Nightstar 1980, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Norwegian, Rabid Raccoon, Regis Stella the Brony Pirate, Ribloid, Rustbelt Kid, Shoe Daddy 13, The Demon Jester, Tommy D, TN Professor, Vaporwave, Vibralux, Wailing Witch, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Heger Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Wow. Thank you all so much for your love and support. It really does mean the world to me, and it is genuinely helping take care of the podcast for all of the bills that come in for it. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. With that, let's get into it. First up on today's docket, we're going to have to get into some of the time sensitive stuff, because as much as I know you want to hear this interview, it was a good interview too. I want to make sure that I get you guys the information that is important and imperative to the rest of your month. So thanks to Sea of Thieves for actually putting out this month in Sea of Thieves, their newsletter, to kind of break down what's going to be happening. If you don't know, Golden Glory weekend is this weekend. So if you haven't been sailing the seas, then what have you been doing? Because now's the best time to be doing it. Anytime you open up the captain's voyage table system, it should tell you Golden Glory is going to be this weekend, but it is going from June 6th to June 9th with the standard perks of double gold, reputation, renown, allegiance, clout, opportunities to lose everything. It's all there. It's all going to be the gold, the glory, and the not so glory weekend. So that is going on now. Or sorry, yeah, I guess technically now. I'm thinking in the future. I'm recording on a different day. Isn't that weird? I don't record during the week. I record at the end of the week when everything's out and I can coalesce it all together. Next up, from June 11th to June 16th, they're going to be having a Pirate Emporium sale. in which case they are going to be taking the Wrecker Wrangler, the Stormfish Chaser, the Lionfish, and the Ruby Splashtail sets are all going to be 50% off. So if there was any of that has been on something that's on your wish list, 50% off is a great way to be able to capture that at a discounted rate. Pretty good deal. So keep an eye out for that. That's starting June 11th through June 16th. Then we have the Ancient Pillars release, which is going to be on Friday, June 13th. The latest Sea of Thieves soundtrack edition is the dramatic driving anthem, The Ancient Pillars, which will be available to stream on Spotify or alternative streaming services of your choice from June 13th on, guaranteed to make the completion of any task feel grander. I actually don't mind this music. I think it's pretty good. Then on Juneteenth, the Thursday, June 19th, there's going to be a June monthly update, with Season 16's second content update releases on Juneteenth, bringing with it revamped Reaper chests. As Flameheart's power and influence grows, these once mysteriously locked chests can now be unsealed, unleashing Order of Bones and Blade Skeletons to protect your crew and attack any foes nearby. Of course, the new monthly update also brings fancy new wares to the Pirate Emporium and a Voyage of Luck to all players for free, so there will be plenty to set sail for when June's update drops. Then, that same day is when Fight Nights event kicks off. This is that promised week-long Fight Nights event that is going to be going on because of the downtime that they had for the Hourglass. So after its debut late last year, Fight Nights returns. Seek out combat with your Hourglass of Fate and earn double the usual allegiance and gold for every faction battle fought during this event. These boosts will fast forward your progress towards the blessing of Athena's fortune or the skeleton curse. So put your best foot forward and get ready for some solid seafaring scrapping, always with the alliteration. Then that weekend is going to be Twitch drops. So from June 20th to June 27th, that is a full week, they are kicking up with another set of June Twitch drops, or not another set, but another set of Twitch drops. They said that the set of swag will be available to unlock and claim for 7 days with gold, seasonal renown, voyages, and cosmetics as all part of the package. There will be more information on specific goodies, included later in the month, and then drops are available just by linking your accounts with Rare's Sea of Thieves website and Twitch to make sure that you get those drops accounted for. Then, throughout Season 16, the sales of bonded brawlers. Wow. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. I've been working on getting ready for SGF most of the day. Plus, I just got my Switch too, which we may get news about for Rare this weekend. Maybe, I don't know. Players who have yet to set sail in Sea of Thieves 16 are still able to bag the beautiful blue sails of bonded brawlers. Released in celebration of Sea of Thieves' launch on Battle.net, these snazzy sheets remain available to claim for free over the course of Season 16. Just head to the ship customization chest to find and equip them. And then the last thing is one that I'm very happy about. And I love that they did this. Rare didn't have to do it. And it's kind of normal for this month for a lot of companies to express their support of like everyone basically. But basically, it is Pride Month, if you didn't know. So shout out to all the folks celebrating in Pride Month and any of the supporters. But they released a new flag. And this new flag actually kind of encompasses everyone, which is kind of cool. So I'm glad they did it. I'm glad that they were able to get like everything. Like it's not just the rainbow flag, but you've got the Black Lives Matter. You've got the Latinx folks. You've got the trans community. It's all on the flag. And it's interesting that they put this up because usually for a lot of this stuff, they usually just give it to you. They don't force anyone to buy this, but if you do want to get it, which is pretty straightforward, head over to Lorena outside any tavern And for 1969 gold, you'll be able to get the new Pride Month flag. So they do go on to say, of course, June is also Pride Month, which gives us a wonderful opportunity to celebrate all our sailors' differences and reaffirm our commitment to Sea of Thieves' pirate code, which was created by the community when the game came out. If you're unfamiliar with it, they always have it up there. If you're in the Discord, believe it or not, if you go to the Keelhauled Discord, I believe it is on Tavern Talk. The very first pin I think I ever did for Keelhauled in Tavern Talk was actually the pirate code. Yep, I did. And so back on March 30th, 2018 at 7:45 p.m. my time, I pinned the post of the pirate code, which basically goes in to say, like, this flag is representative of not only Pride Month, but also the first article of the pirate code. The sea calls to us all. Everyone is welcome on Sea of Thieves, regardless of age, gender, race, sexuality, nationality, or creed. Because, as Article 2 says, the sea unites us as one community. Outside the heat of battle or piracy on the high seas, all crews shall bond together as a community of like-minded souls. We're all pirates. We all love the game for the piracy. There's no reason why we can't be friends, especially if you're willing to accept and welcome everyone, just if they're not, if they're not the same as you, kind of thing. So very happy to see that. It was nice to see the support out there. There's always going to be detractors out there who are trying to clickbait or rage bait people into arguments. But that always, you're always arguing with someone who doesn't care at the end of the day. So don't take it upon yourself to get into arguments with folks whose minds are already made up. Focus on your own mental health, focus on the people that you care about, and be willing to meet other people during this month who, you see around. If they happen to be flying the flag, call out to them if you can. Be like, hey, nice flag. I like it. So that's, again, available through Lorena for 1969 gold, which I'm trying to remember. I know it is important. I should know this, but I actually can't remember what it is off the top of my head. The one thing that I was kind of bummed about this is that the participating territories that this is available is fairly small compared to number of territories that are actually available. So if you have any questions about that, I'll go ahead and put a link to the support article for which areas are available for the Pride Month flag for 2025. So unfortunately, I think it's 61 different territories out of the 160 plus countries that are that we have right now. So it would be nice if it was in more, but Microsoft isn't actually available in all of them either. So there's some countries that just don't even have the availability to be able to purchase Sea of Thieves legally in their own country. So it is what it is. Gonna celebrate it regardless. So next on today's docket, I just wanted to cover some of the hot fixes that came in this last month, or this last Monday, actually, from Drew Stevens. Also, just as a reminder too, if you're watching the YouTube version, you might see the video loop a bit because I'm packing for SGF. I don't have time to sit down and record additional B-roll, and I'm just noticing how much extra time I'm going when covering some of this other stuff on top of how long this interview is going to be. So if you see the video loop and you actually notice it, you get 10 points. 10 points to you. So if you don't, and you didn't even notice it until now, and it's not even a big deal, or you don't notice it later, don't worry about it. I went out sailing tonight. It was pretty good. Had some good times out there. But for all intents and purposes, it was capturing B-roll for this interview. But Drew came in on Monday, which is about 3 days ago as the time of recording this, for the hotfix, which actually covered some of the stuff. So the main key points here are that players fired from a cannon of rage should no longer be affected by ship movement. Cannons placed on the Reaper's hideout lift, the elevator, should now retain their shape. the new Skull of the Banished, which is from the Reaper Voyages, can no longer be hidden inside treasure chests because it was removing the mark from the map when you would put it in a treasure chest. Caskets of verdant bones are back on the menu, which I was trying to find out what this was, because I think last weekend I actually thought this was something else. I thought this was the Reaper chests that would open up and we'd be able to call the salad bars. I'm not actually sure that that's what this is at the moment. I think that this is actually tied to the expansion of the Reaper's emissary quests and or the voyages there, and I think that they're actually something that they're casks of verdant bones that you would get from dives, I think. So I've been looking at them. I've got casks, or not the dives, but the voyage. I've got casks of molted bones of Reaper followers urns. I've got the casks of gilded bones and Reaper's masters urns. I also have the shadowed bones. The verdant bones is the one that I don't have anything of. So apparently those were not actually showing up, which this hotfix addressed as well too. So you should be able to claim those verdant bones to be able to turn in for the commendations now as well. Drew also went on to say that there's further game integrity improvements to address players attempting to bypass pack file restrictions. He says, "We see you." I've been told that there's some pretty strong exploits right now in the game. So if you know about them, don't recommend you doing them, because I can't imagine you want to lose your account over it, especially considering it's just gold or something else. And the other aspect of this is that they are fully aware of what's going on with a lot of the exploits that people are attempting to do. He says, looking ahead, the team are busy preparing for our mid-season update in June, delivering the next features for season 16. But they've also been busy taking onboard feedback and triaging reports from players. Here's a few updates. The Hunter's Call Emissary Ledger. While the Hunter's Call Ledger refreshed at the start of June, new rewards to be earned aren't currently visible. These next rewards will be delivered as part of June's game update and delivered when the ledgers close at the end of the month. So you've been working on those and you're at the top. Fear not, you will get those rewards. The Canon of Rage Balancing. There's a lot of feedback on this new tool. We are going to let the experience settle following this latest hotfix and then assess what potential further balancing may be required. At the moment, 4 shots is the max that I think you can really do before it explodes. 5 shots is too much. Kind of curious to see what they think needs to be balanced, because I feel like it is a relatively balanced item. It's a high risk, high reward kind of item, and there's a lot of planning, and you can't just scoop it up and move it away from danger. So there's definitely, like, you have to actively accept that this is a huge risk for a very powerful payoff if you use it right. They've also talked about the search of ancient secrets voyage locations. While crews have been finding themselves arriving on the same islands as rivals, more locations for the voyage will be arriving in June to provide more variety. Then he also goes on to say that there's sneaky exploits. I'll not share any details here, but yes, we're aware and working on it. He says, I'll save any further tidbits for the next developer update arriving later in June. But for now, thanks for all the reports and feedback so far. All right, pirates. Well, that is it for the news. I think you've listened long enough. I think you deserve the interview. So without further ado, here's the interview with Mike Chapman, creative director over at Rare, who was kind enough to sit down with me and talk about Sea of Thieves and the lore and the story, tall tales, external media, all kinds of fascinating stuff, as we have a very casual, warm welcome and conversation with him. So enjoy this. Definitely, if you enjoyed this, please let the Rare team know. This was a really tough thing to get scheduled out and to get finished, and it was a lot of work on both the community management team as well as the dev team and the fans who helped kind of promote this on social media to get attention to the dev team to be able to say, hey, please make this happen. We want to hear it. We want to ask our questions. So because of that, definitely share your thoughts, share your feelings with this. Let the team at Rare know that you appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, if you don't, remember my name is Captain Flameheart. No, that's not true. It's CaptainLogun, but you can let me know and I'll definitely take that feedback. I'll cry in my pillow made of money from Rare for being a total shill. But I will still be crying. So you'll have won that battle. But yeah, anyway, let's get into the interview.
It's been a while. How have you been?
Oh, a lot of stuff has kind of happened. I'm not gonna lie. The last year has been an upheaval for my life, but just keep moving forward for all intents and purposes. How about you?
Yeah, good. Hopefully your stuff has ended positively.
I mean, it'll always be positive as long as I can keep moving forward. So, but yeah. That's kind of the main thing. But yeah, outside of that, just kind of, I don't know, deal with life as it comes at you. You deal. I still have one of the little fluffy beasts walking around making noise all the time anyway.
Oh, look at that on command.
Yeah, she knows.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a big believer in follow your bliss. That's the answer. Follow what makes you happy.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of,
I know, easier said than done. Easier said than done. Life has a habit of throwing multiple things at you at once. It's never one thing.
Yeah. It's hard in the moment, but I'm an optimist, so for me, it's like it's gonna be rough, but I don't let that rule the rest of my life because I've been in there. I've been in that mindset, and that's just it's never fun. It never feels good, so it's always one of those things where I'd rather focus on just getting through it, and then like processing what I need to, and then like that's life. So then just kind of wait for the next moment because it feels like with everything, it's always like an up and down. If things are going good at one point, there's going to be a dip, and you just have to get through that dip to get to the next high. So.
And the next high.
How's your life been? Good.
Ridiculously. I mean, this year has been so intense.
Yeah.
Work is really intense in a good way. I mean, it's good stuff, but yeah, it's not slowing down. It's really not slowing down. There's it's crazy. Like there's the day to day of actually building seasonal content, and then there's future planning for Sea of Thieves stretches out multiple years. So yeah, we're not slowing down. We're changing kind of some of the ways that we do things for sure, based on what we've learned. But just some things have changed and some things haven't changed. I think the way I've talked to you about Sea of Thieves 5-6 years ago in the early days, like none of that has really changed. Like I think maybe some of the community are expecting us to slow down, and we're going to have a managed decline now of Sea of Thieves. It's like we never said that was going to happen. We're still going. That's
a wild thing to me, man. You talking about getting a chance to see how Sea of Thieves, how it's not going to slow down. I feel like that's honestly like the premise of most of the stuff that I want to talk to you about is how wild the game has been, how long it's been going on. It's insane to think that it's funny because I feel like we've been like, I've been following Sea of Thieves and making content for it as almost as long as you've been actually like invested in making the game in itself. And it's wild to me to think about just how I know when it launched back in 2018, I think a lot of us had different thoughts about what this game was going to end up being, and the hopes and dreams are there. And I think there's been so much that we've been able to kind of see come to fruition, but there's still so much, and there's so much that I think has come to the game that we're still hoping to hear from. That it's cool to hear that you guys don't want to slow down when it comes to the development, and like a 10-year game is not as far-fetched as it was back in 2018. And knowing how many characters you have, how many stories that you can tell, I keep wondering, where does the world go with the story, which kind of brings me to like the future of storytelling with the game. How do you
Mm.
feel the story is going right now? Because it feels like, from a community perspective, that it's light, focusing a lot on the seasonal content and what the theme is of the season. And kudos to the last podcast that you guys put out, because I appreciated that you called out that a lot of the stuff that you want to do may not necessarily fit in with the seasonal theme, and how you try to balance that. So do you foresee the future of Sea of Thieves, like story, taking a stronger hand on the wheel when it comes to the developmental course over the next couple of years?
I'll say yes. I will say yes. I think it's interesting how the community perceive it. I think when the story was the focus, as in the focus in the eyes of the community, in terms of the primary kind of content updates were adventures. We were doing tall tales off the back of some tall tales. We were doing Legend of Monkey Island. We were doing the rollout of adventures. I think at the time it felt like this isn't really landing. Like this is too story focused. The community aren't appreciating this. Like they're not getting value from this.
Yeah.
And I think there's a general comment here around you never know you're doing the right thing until it's ended.
Yeah.
Because in the time you never feel like you're doing the right thing. You always feel like you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you've got to get out of that blast radius, out of the eye of the storm, before you realize, oh, actually that people actually did like that. But you've got to get out of it for them to comment on it. It's really, really hard to know what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And we've tried so many different approaches to narrative.
Yeah.
And I look very fondly at the kind of techniques that we are using more and more now, but the techniques we used in the first couple of years, where you've got an unfolding story from build to build, and it's coupled with world changes, and then there can be these crescendos. But it's kind of more wedded into gameplay. I think that's probably the primary way we'll do it. And some people will say now, and I appreciate it, story's a loaded term. What does story even mean? Every season's got a story. Every time we design a season, we think about what's happening to the characters now. What is the next step in the narrative journey of Sea of Thieves?
Yeah.
But again, I just don't think that won't be the only way. I mean, I do like the idea that we'll go and tell some more tall tales in the future, but that's not the primary way either. There's just another tool in our toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all still in contention. I think after Legend of Monkey Island, and a big part of that was, I think on large, it was seen as, if you weren't a Monkey Island fan, it felt like the spotlight was taken off the core Sea of Thieves world and characters, which I never really saw it that way. But that didn't land as well as I had hoped with the broader community. It did land well in some circles, but it didn't broadly land as well. I mean, clearly nowhere near the scale of A Pirate's Life, which you wouldn't expect, because it's not a broad appeal kind of IP that we're crossing over with and bringing that world to our world.
Yeah.
But I think since then, that was around that time we'd done guilds, we'd done captaincy. Since then, we've just gone, we can't let the sandbox get too stale. But that's where the focus has shifted onto the sandbox and trying to weave story in where it makes sense.
Yeah.
But we are still think of it like a lore timeline. That timeline, we're not taking great strides forward, but we are taking steps forward with every season. And there are crescendos in our minds and big outcomes and finales. But again, the things that get us there are a variety of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very subjective term, narrative and story. What do people mean by that?
It really is. And I think at the heart of it, what really, because it's funny, I asked my core group of like community, like, I'm going to be interviewing Mike. I want to get questions. The overwhelming consensus of questions, so if you were to boil it all down to its bare ingredients, like the core essence of it, they wanted to know if there was going to be big developments with the story, whether it involved crossovers from other IP, whether it involved reoccurring characters. Because I think one of the things that you guys did really, really well was build up a lot of the story around Briggsy and Tasha with the adventures. And right as that was starting to culminate into its final chapter, we got the Monkey Island, which I still say is one of the greatest realizations of a point and click adventure game in a 3D space that I've ever experienced. And I would still put money down that if you were to take that game, take those tall tales, lift it out of Sea of Thieves and put it out in the world as its own game would do really, really well by a lot of Monkey Island fans and would sell as its own game because it's so from start to finish, like complete. And I think having that break between the story from what was leading into Monkey Island and going from there, a lot of folks are kind of wondering when we were going to get back to that Briggsy story, because you had us like so enthralled with what was going on with the dark constellations and the story of the ancients and the curse and the potential cure for the curse, you know, and having that now kind of come back in to play with the skeleton camps. It doesn't feel like the bridge was quite as connected as a lot of folks wanted it to be. And I feel like maybe that's me projecting a little bit, trying to glean from what they've told me, but it's been very interesting to kind of see how story has been playing out for Sea of Thieves in the last few seasons, namely with like a lot of little teases. I think that the journals have done a good service to keep things going. And I'm kind of curious, do you have plans, or I guess a better question would be, is there a character that we have right now that hasn't quite been in the spotlight that you'd like to bring into the fold or back into the fold that has kind of been like out of play for a while?
Oh yeah, multiple, easily. Quite a few characters that players have seen, and my favorite characters other than Briggsy have been introduced, and they're not really in the spotlight anymore. They were introduced for a reason. They've got a part to play. They've got an interesting perspective on the Sea of Thieves. So yeah, that multiple characters going to come back in. You should save your questions for the podcast if you want to roll it.
Oh, this is it.
Oh, this is it. We're here.
We're doing it.
Cut that bit out. I just thought we were warming up.
No, right? This is it, man. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna. I mean, it's. I'm just trying to pick up from where we left off at SOT Fest at this point.
I love it. I much prefer this style.
So because it brings me to because I was thinking, I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to talk to you about, and one of the things that kind of brought me into this mindset was the last the podcast that you guys released, kind of talking about season 16 and the relevance of the ancients to Flameheart and the orb with the whispers and the secrets that he's trying to uncover. It really got me thinking about something that you said, which was no one in Sea of Thieves can live indefinitely without some change or some aspect of them changing, having to be changed throughout the Sea of Thieves. And it really made me think about this one character that I absolutely love that has changed and has moved out of the limelight, and I'm hoping comes back in a different way. And I mean, I could list out the number of characters that everyone's got like a kind of like who wants to talk about it, but I'm going to be selfish since I get to be the one interviewing you, and I want to talk about Pendragon a little bit. Pendragon.
They're off the Pendragon.
Arthur Pendragon is one of my favorite characters in Sea of Thieves, and I know a lot of people hate the Goody Two-Shoes character, but I really loved what he was about and what he brought to it, and the nuances from the comics. With him coming into the Sea of Thieves and having an interesting relationship with the Order of Souls, doing what he's done, accidentally resurrecting or releasing Flameheart, going to battle with him, and then eventually getting sucked into the Sea of the Damned. That's a lot of loss for someone who's kind of an eternal hopeful.
It is.
I would love to know, and this isn't like, this is more of like a just kind of throwing this out onto the dartboard. I don't think that someone could sustain that much loss and have it not change who they are. And I keep wondering.
I would argue it's already changed.
It feels
Pendragon. But I would think of it this way: like all the characters are interesting in their own ways, but Pendragon particularly is quite interesting. His background, his relationship with the Order of Souls, the clashes he's had with Grey Marrow and Captain Flameheart. And this is where I totally empathise with the frustration, because it makes me frustrated, as you can imagine. But our most interesting characters, the story naturally takes them to quite meaningful places, which is exactly what's happened with Pendragon. He has been so pivotal to what's happening in the Sea of Thieves now. He's kind of ended up in this place where, yeah, okay, he's in a little bit of purgatory, but he's been set up for greater stories in the future. All of everything he's going through is part of the eventual story that we want to tell. And easy to say, right? Because the day-to-day is people see this character have a lot of focus, and then the focus falls off, and he's kind of in story cryogenically frozen in the Sea of the Damned.
Yeah.
But his time will come. Like there's obviously, I mean, it's not a Sea of Thieves for me to say that the exploration of what the Sea of the Damned is, how that connects to the ancients, why Flameheart wants to control it. Some fans who've read Heart of Fire will have some little indications from that. But ultimately, what Flameheart wants to achieve is true freedom in the Sea of Thieves. He believes the way he can do it is attaining ancient power. Pendragon is infinitely wrapped up, like forever, in that story of Flameheart, and that story is still yet to pay out. And like going back to the kind of Tasha storyline, that is a great example of when the requirements and demands of a season down to line with the requirements and demands of the primary narrative. And that is a great example. Very, very challenging. That time where I go back to what I said earlier on, where when you're in it, when you're living and breathing it, when you're creating the story, you don't realize how much the community value and appreciate it until you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So it was very much building up to a crescendo, and then we cooled it off really quickly because we needed to move on with the kind of seasonal features that we wanted to build. And it's not like there's a narrative team doing nothing, and then there's a game team going, well, it's our turn now, we're going to do loads of gameplay. It's like, no, they're the same people.
Yeah.
They're the same people. There's so many eggs in the basket, right? Like where we choose to invest and where we bring extra life to the Sea of Thieves is just a trade-off. And the sandbox was crying out for more additions, and that's where we chose to go, which left the story in a very difficult position. In hindsight, in the reaction of the community, maybe that wasn't quite the right call, or the balance of the decision wasn't quite right, and we detracted too much from the narrative. But yeah, I mean, I stand by the movements of the story in terms of where the narrative went with Teddy and Tasha, but I just think it was definitely played out a little bit clumsily. We just took a lot of steps very quickly.
Yeah.
And all that matters is the perception of the audience. And the audience said, whoa, this feels like it's gone a million miles an hour and now at the end.
Yeah.
We've just gone from, we're going to go to this ancient temple, and then it's wrapped up really quickly. So I kind of like the meaning of the story and where it went, but it was just wrapped up too quickly.
Yeah.
Which is a complete contrast to what got us there, right? Which was a general build, unfold, weave you in, get you invested. And then we didn't pay it off as well as we could have done. But again, that is the pitfall and perils of storytelling in a live game. It is really, really challenging to do it consistently in a way that gives people you want to give people a fantastic time. You also want to surprise them, take them to new places. But the reason fundamentally why the majority of people are playing is a really compelling gameplay experience. So we have to look after that first and foremost. So it's challenging, and like that. Going back to that point of what is story in Sea of Thieves. Like on one hand, we still feel like we are delivering the story.
Yeah.
On one hand, because the events of what happened in the adventures, the story of Flameheart, or what he discovered through the orb and the location of the ancient stargazing temples. Excavations have started, dug down, retrieved the skulls. The orbers read the memories of the skulls, and now we're moving on to the crypts of the banished ancient, the season that came out yesterday. All of those things, when we create that content, is told as part of a linear story.
Yeah.
And then we're focusing on it for a season. And that story continues to play out. What happens next? What is the story of the banished ancients? Why are they different to other ancients that we've heard about? I mean, how does that relate to the Sea of the Damned? This is a story still playing out. I'm going to stop now because I'll just keep going.
Well, you'll have to forgive me because I'm gonna press upon you. How do you continue to see being able to delineate the differences? Because at the moment we have ancients, and ancients are for the folks that are kind of reading into the story and kind of seeing like where that's playing out. We are seeing that, there is a sect of ancients that banished and locked away this other sect of ancients. And much like Flameheart and Ramsey, no pirate is necessarily like free of sin. We all play on one part of the world, and we also play on another part of the world. There's always that balance of, are we going to be Reapers today? Or are we going to be Athena boys today? Like, it just kind of depends on where our mood lies. So
yeah, and that's exactly what the groups have experienced in the world. That choice that players make, all of the groups in the world make that same choice. No one's spared from that morality test, including the ancients. That's exactly what's happened.
Do you feel like at some point you'll be able to have ancients? Because one of the things I appreciated about parts of the Veil voyage were some of the moments where you actually had an ancient kind of like talking to you, giving you kind of ham fisting the exposition. And as much as I love the subtlety that you guys have with a lot of the storytelling that you do with just little things here and there, like it's just kind of like a, the widow's mark on the tomb that kind of kept her caged up, things like that.
It's secondary, right? It's kind of it's breadcrumbs. It's dots that you can connect. It's not the primary thrust of a narrative with emotional beats and delivery. Like, absolutely. I mean, that's the main downside of it. The trade-off is when you do it that way. I mean, the Veil was an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of favorite experience that I think we've built. One of them, I think, really, really cool. Really, that was taking an almost D&D style module approach of modules that could get remixed. But that was trying to hit against, I guess, a problem you can hear me talking about here, which is the more you make it a broadly accessible and well understood story that people can get emotionally invested in, the more challenging it is to make it replayable. That's what Veil went for. But I think a reflection on that is that Veil was a big investment for one story.
Yeah.
Because it had to play it in different ways. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I feel like you guys have done a good job of this in a prior state that I'm surprised isn't kind of the status quo as far as delivering story and then turning that into a repeatable thing. But we did have Flameheart as a world event with his ghost fleet with the Armada. That was eventually shifted not only to a kind of like more bare minimum world event, but additionally a smaller version of that was added eventually to the Order of Souls roster of voyages. And I think that honestly, that was one of the coolest ways to kind of have an experience. It's like, okay, we're not dealing directly with Flameheart because things have shifted and moved on as far as the story. We all remember the big red head in the sky, but we still have something that is accessible both at a world event level and at a small voyage level to help kind of keep those connections, keep you connected to that. Like, oh, this is still still part of the power that he has over the Sea of the Damned. He still has the ability to kind of summon these ships from the Sea of the Damned into our world, either in a more grand world event aspect of it. But no one's gonna begrudge the world event because it doesn't have Flameheart's head, because we had that for a good long while. And I kind of wonder with stories similar to the Veil and with the new Reapers voyages that just came out, with those moving beyond the story relevance in the telling of the story that you guys have out, if those will ever go to a more a kind of neutral replayable state that you'll pull out certain aspects of it, but it feels really hard with certain things like that. It seems like really hard to put a Veil voyage out that doesn't have the Pirate Lord telling you why you're doing this Veil voyage.
Exactly. And then that's why there's only so far you can go with the kind of narrative dressing of those elements, because like if you were following it like a linear story, 3 months time, the next season, you'd want that, what you launched previously, to change radically.
Yeah.
But then you would still have most players going, well, it's the same gameplay. Why would I be interested if it's changed? Because you're changing it just for a story reason. So, and honestly, I would kind of, I think what you said about that was kind of fun to do, kind of take something away like the Flameheart Head World event, because it didn't make sense in that way anymore at that point in the story. but to preserve the gameplay value. But I guess I would say, is that really that different, seeing a little spider sigil on a skull? Like, to the average
No.
player, it is a little bit, you've really got to connect, there's a lot of work on the player to connect those dots. And that's part of the joy, right, of immersing yourself in a story in an open world, shared world game. But yeah, I think there's still some things that we are keen to try. You'll definitely see a little bit of an evolution in season 17 in terms of how we gate gameplay experiences, so it feels like there is an unfolding of a narrative using fairly simple techniques. You'll see an evolution of that. But I think there are some developments in the story that we can foresee that we will want as a big moment that everybody can understand. And then there are other things that it's okay to be part of the tapestry of Sea of Thieves that players build up the knowledge of over time, and then certain characters can talk about it and summarize it in terms of what's happening. But I think what I will say is nothing's it always feels like where we're at now with the Sea of Thieves, it's safe for people to assume that, it's always going to be this way. I think everything we've tried previously are still techniques we'll probably use.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing planned right now, but would we ever do tall tales in the future? I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Armed with all the things that we've done before. Will we ever do community choices again, where people get to choose the outcome of a major moment in Sea of Thieves history? That was great. I love doing that. I'm sure the team loved doing that. And we learned a lot from that, and seeing the emotional investment was wonderful. Like, I'm Team Reaper. I'm Team Merrick, like all of that Team Golden Sands, all of that stuff. Like, that was wonderful. I would love to do that again, and try new things out with that. So I think everything's still in play for what we can do with our story. But there's what's right for the game from our perspective, but at the same time, I still feel as frustrated as our players in terms of, I wish I could just hit fast forward on the story and do it at the same time, but it's just not reality.
Yeah. And I fully understand that. If anything, I feel like a lot of players that I talk to would be happier with, because I feel like this is one of the questions that I've kind of been thinking about. And it's funny because as I'm looking through my notes, I think I must have rewritten this question at least 3 or 4 times here. But do you feel like the story has to take a backseat when the game health is perceived as negative?
That's that question again. Does the story need to take a backseat when the game health?
Because I constantly wonder what drives the development for Sea of Thieves, whether it tends to, because it feels like it tends to flop. It tends to feel like it's spinning plates, and the story plate has to get spinned up to keep that one aloft, and then you switch over and you have to keep the features one.
And there's an element of truth in that. There's an element of truth in what it takes the team to deliver. The story in the traditional sense, let's talk about tall tales. Like, a team focused on building tall tales it's a completely different design process. It's a completely different collaboration with art, audio, music. It's just different, which is wonderful, because it's a bit of a palate cleanser to what you've been doing before. It's just a different photo. It's kind of like you're working on a movie suddenly, compared to.
I have questions about that later too.
We'll get to that. Be a good subject. Or working on ingredients for a sandbox, and I think it just building seasons. It gets easier when we all have knowledge in a particular area, and sometimes the team that's going to be most efficient at building a certain type of content are busy elsewhere, or content teams are busy elsewhere. So you can kind of do a version of it. You could release a version of something that you're like, well, it's not really what we wanted. Do we still want to do it? Well, no, let's wait. Let's not do it. Right now, we're just focusing on the sandbox. That has a spin up, a focus, and then a spin down in terms of time. So there is truth in that. So which probably why it's perceived as a little bit of a, whoa, they're focusing here. Yeah, they're focusing over here. That's how it feels like to us as well. But that is just the reality of it. There are others, and no, I don't need to say this to you. You get it. You totally get this. But there's, I think, beyond kind of the logo of Rare and Xbox, like there's a team of individuals, a very talented team that have been working on Sea of Thieves for a long time. And like, sometimes we all need a change. Like if we have a team really strong at developing tall tales, last thing you want to do is like, well, you're making tall tale to the end of time. because that's your thing, because people will just not want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So there is a natural rotation on the team and a spin up and spin down in terms of what the team is focusing on, and that's kind of the craft of game development that nobody talks about, which is teams of people make these incredible experiences, and like making sure the team is happy and motivated and energized about what they're working on is part of the craft. It's not just you work at Rare, you should be happy to work here. Keep working on the same old thing. Like you've really got to think about the health. There's game health, there's team health. You've really got to think about what's setting us up for success and future success by investing in the team. So that is a factor as well in terms of where we focus people.
With something like that, how difficult is it to integrate satellite studios that you partner with to build content out for seasons and cinematics and stuff?
And it really depends on the partner studio. That was a real leap of faith in the early days. The first time we did that, which was on our anniversary, actually quite early post-launch, we did that to be able to scale what we could do. That was a big thing for content to be built outside of the walls of Rare. But it's very much about forging a partnership with like-minded individuals that see the game the way that you see the game. And of course, we kind of lead it and try and find partner leaders over on those other teams that see it the way that we do. And and again, we're in a hybrid world. It's even more natural now, where most of the calls are, even if people are physically in the studio, they're hybrid calls where you're on teams. So the fact that you're dialing into a call with people from the studio, and then the next call is with people mix of the studio and the partner team, it kind of those lines seem to kind of get blurred. But I think it is challenging in the early days when you're trying to find the right partner. But once a partner has made a couple of releases, they've delivered a season, it then starts to feel quite natural. They understand what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, we're in a really fortunate place right now where we've got partners that love the game as much as we do, obviously very passionate about it, and got an incredible amount of knowledge in making content for this world. So yeah, it's challenging. I was quite concerned about it in the early days, if I'm honest with you, because it is quite a scary thing of, like, as much as you oversee, you are handing over the reins to a team outside of Rare, but it's worked out really, really well, and we've got a great set of people working with us.
Speaking of handing over the reins, I've noticed on a lot of the stuff that's come out outside of the game, your name isn't quite as prolific on a lot of the printed material anymore. Is there something about that maybe you could enlighten me about and kind of talk about maybe why?
What you say?
Well,
you mean kind of Xbox Wire articles and things like that? Or?
No, I'm thinking like the actual comics. I haven't seen your name on the comics as much. Whenever I'm checking to see, like, okay, where's the story coming from? Is there any new names? Are the artists still the same? Editors still the same? And I've noticed that it was kind of concerning for a moment there. I was like, well, is Mike handing things off to someone else right now? Like, is he not as hands-on with the lore? Like, where are things?
I love how observant you are. I love that attention to detail. Honestly, it is probably something as simple as the team that oversees the comic books from like a brand perspective. You have new people on the team that move around. The way we credit is probably subtly changed. There's nothing behind that.
All right.
Yeah, there's nothing behind that. I think we made quite a bold claim many years ago when we said that everything in and out of the game is always canon. And long may that continue. It has to. From my point of view, there was never a choice. You just don't do that from a world building perspective. Everything, whether you're reading the graphic novel, you're reading a novel, you're playing the game, it's all windows into exactly the same world. So yeah, it's treated with a lot of care.
So have you been thinking about how Neil Druckmann's been stepping into other areas of media and actually looking to build out parts of Sea of Thieves in ways that we maybe haven't seen before?
I think I'm going to say this. You know I'm going to say this, Logan, but I believe it. There is a truly stellar Sea of Thieves movie. There is. I'm not saying we're making it, but it would be cool.
Well,
but there is, and then who knows where the future might take us. But I mean, that's a great follow-up question anyway, because all of that in-game stuff, out-of-game stuff, graphic novel, even the lore we kind of reveal on social media, something as kind of shallow and innocuous as that, like all of that is in service of a world that's more than just a game. Like we truly, and that's been genuinely, this seems. Like I'm just saying this, but this absolutely true. Like working on Sea of Thieves has been the greatest pleasure, the greatest pleasure of my professional life, because it's not just a game, it's a world. And I used to daydream about whether they be from books or movies or games when I was growing up, and that's what I want for our fans. I want them to believe in Sea of Thieves as a place with a set of values and something they can really emotionally invest in. We believe that at launch. We believe that more than ever now, and I think, if as part of that vision and exploration, it gets us to things like a TV series or a movies or an animated series or that kind of thing, like I want to believe that's possible.
I mean, you guys already have ties to Disney. Illumination seems to be open to it, and they make pretty perfect 90-minute animated movies out there. So I would say that what again, there's nothing planned, but if it hasn't happened so far, there's a reason. And getting to the right creative is the most important thing. Yeah. It would be relatively easy. I mean, I think relatively easy in terms of getting the ball rolling. Relatively easy to go partner with a production company, go get something out there, just a Sea of Thieves movie linear media opportunity out there. It would, but it wouldn't pass muster. It wouldn't be something we'd be proud of. It wouldn't be something that is a great introduction to our world, that when you play the game, it feels completely complementary. Finding Rare is a game studio. Like, we'd need to go find the right partners that could go bring this to life in a cinematic way. Like, doing that justice would be our primary concern. It would be my biggest fear, would be doing something like that and it not living up and exceeding the expectations of players who love the game. Yeah. So that's a number one thing we'd need to solve. Otherwise, it's just not worth doing unless it's right. Mm-hmm. I respect that. Because I messaged you a while ago, and I don't blame you for not being able to check every single message that every pirate on the seas. No, don't apologize, please, because I understand exactly what it is. But it was one of those things that I knew I wanted to talk to you about, but in the moment it didn't work out because of timing. But I wanted to bring up Skeleton Crew with you because I feel like that's a show that I never got to talk to you about. Was right.
Funny though, I didn't reply to your message, but I read your message and it did make me smile, because I was kind of in that afterglow of Skeleton Crew at the time. I think it was during the season you sent it to me and I was watching it actively.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, this is like two of my favorite things coming together. This is like Goonies in the Star Wars universe. This is, wow. Inject it into me. This is incredible.
Right.
Yeah, loved it.
So that, looking at production studios doing stuff like that, it feels like a lot of what kind of your history with just growing up and what influenced your creative process in the past, and seeing how you've taken a lot of that and injected into Sea of Thieves. I feel like that there are other creatives out there looking at like Skeleton Crew, and someone who obviously had a huge passion for both Goonies and Star Wars, being able to meld those two concepts together and put out a fantastic show. Knowing what you guys have as far as the world of Sea of Thieves, it only feels right that there be some sort of mini series or a film, something to take characters, whether it be holistic with like the main cast of Sea of Thieves with Flameheart and Ramsey and Belle, and one of these days I'm going to find out who Belle actually is, and I'm going to get her backstory. Be fantastic. Don't even put that look like you're going to like, because I feel like she walked out of the Sea of the Damned Tavern. She's like, "Hi, I'm here," and everyone was like, "Cool, all right, that's fine," and no one was like, "Wait, who is this?"
I know. Yeah. She's I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, all right. Keep your secrets. But I feel like there's so much opportunity for that, and having Sea of Thieves kind of be like one of those IPs goes back to our conversation for episode 200, where I very much wanted to see that sequel to A Pirate's Life, where we had it for a while, we'd had it for a couple months, and looking at how Jack and Rose and George were kind of moving into their own story, which we haven't gotten to see yet. Bringing that out in the form of a movie would not only cater well to what Pirates of the Caribbean deserves, which is another film, and Disney having a fresh take on the IP, but also bringing Sea of Thieves and giving Sea of Thieves an opportunity to get that platform, that venue of having like a film kind of connected with it. So very much would love to have that. Also, who is Belle? Where is she? Where is she coming from? How does she know Randy?
Go back to your Pendragon question. It's like, this is the frustrating things where you move. It's like you're moving narrative pieces on a chessboard into place, creating aura and mystique around characters. But Bella was the one of the characters I was thinking of when you're asking about characters coming back into the limelight. Like, she's definitely one of them. She's great. Belle's got a lot more.
That's good.
To be revealed.
Because I'm still. I have a hard time forgiving you guys for locking lore away behind the hourglass stuff, because it is. I would love it if there was a way for me as a pirate legend who's like maxed out to be able to at least gain access to those lore characters. I just had my buddy actually drag me down into the lair before we started recording and doing this, because I wanted to like walk around and talk to the characters down there, just to kind of be like, I haven't seen them in so long.
In the Reaper's Lair.
Yeah. Because I'm loving
both of the design meetings for those were so much fun.
Yeah.
How can we, like, we've done a lot of cinematic sequences in the Pirates Life across Tall Tales. Like, how are we gonna top ourselves? Well, Reaper's Lair was fairly obvious, right? We needed to do the ultimate kind of cult ritual, very befitting of the Reapers. Yeah. Whereas for Athena, it was like, ooh, how are we gonna top that Pirate Lord scene at the end of Shores of Gold? Like, a musical number. Gonna do a musical number, and we're gonna make them all sing. Like, yes, that's what we're gonna do. I love that scene. I love the scene with a handshake and the.
Oh yeah, right. It's so well done. I'm still hoping to look
forward into that one.
I will eventually get there. My friends will drag me kicking and screaming through.
Oh, sorry if I spoiled that for you.
No.
I thought you.
I could not. I would not be able to live with myself if I hadn't gone and tried and seen it somehow, because that was like, one of those cool moments. I wanted to be able to see it, even if it wasn't going to be me yet. Eventually, it will be.
There is a kind of going back to related back to the movie TV series kind of question, and I think as someone so close to the game, you would totally expect me to say this with all of my bias, but like there's a way we've approached the world building Sea of Thieves, which leads to some of the problems that the community are talking about with who is this character? Why would you introduce them and then let the thread go cold? Like, why have you flip-flopped between these different characters and not seen any of them to conclusion? And I think for me, it is part of what's different about this world. Like, we went into the world building with the approach of there are no main characters. If there is a main character, players are in this world as the active participant. Okay, there's at least characters on equal footing with them, but there isn't like a main cast of characters. There isn't one Sea of Thieves story. Yeah. And it feels like there is, because we've got the story between the Pirate Lord and Flameheart. But there kind of isn't, right? I mean, it's in what the Pirate Lord says at the end of the Shores of Gold. There'll always be new stories to tell.
Yeah.
Like, the world is a canvas. It's a stage story. It's a canvas for imagination. And when you think about how any cinematic opportunities tie into that, like, we've kind of got something lots of other worlds don't have. And don't get me wrong, we're not Star Wars, but there's a quality there I think we have, which is it's not about any one character. But if hypothetically there were ever and we're really talking hypothetically now, if there was ever a TV series for Sea of Thieves, no one's going to be watching that show thinking, when are they going to get to that bit? When's that bit coming? I wonder how they'll do that bit. What are they going to do after that bit? Because there's no more story in the game. Sea of Thieves is all theme. It's all themes and motifs. It's all a world with a set of rules, basic setup and premise, And then all the different characters and groups are reflections of that, and you're seeing it through their eyes. Flameheart's got a different take to the Pirate Lord. Bell's got a different take to Pendragon. Like the different groups, the Order of Souls versus the Gold Hoarders, they've all got very different takes on what they want to get from the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that as a series or a movie, it's like that is incredibly rich. Because what really makes Sea of Thieves work is even deeper than the pirate theme. It's this real relatable yearning that we all have for wish fulfillment and escapism. Literally the conceit of the game. Like, there is a world beyond the horizon. If we have the map, we can go there, and pirate life will live forever. Like, wow, I can live out all my dreams on a pirate ship and go on adventures with my friends. It's like we all wish that were true, and like that's it. That's that Goonies quality, right?
Yeah.
That's that. And the link back to the 1980s is just there were just a lot of movies at that time that were about wish fulfillment and escapism, and like completely without any cynicism, any self-awareness, just absolutely earnest from the heart wish fulfillment and escapism. And that's what I love, and I think that's the parallel back to games for me, because that's what games are about to me. Games are about I want to portal into another world, sit there on my sofa, and be immersed for a couple of hours and forget about the sometimes harsh world that we live in. It's literally what games are about. Yeah. So I think as a world that's richly built on the notions of that, I think it's very, very relatable. And like, maybe I said this on the podcast, but it is a game that's about the spirit of adventure told through the language of a pirate game. Mike Chapman confirms Sea of Thieves not a pirate game. What the hell does that mean? No, of course it's a pirate game. No, but like it's that the pirate theme is a vehicle. Yeah. Pirate Rapper is a vehicle, sorry, for the underlying theme.
So it's funny because you talking about that constantly, the one film that kept popping into my mind was The Explorers, and how
I was thinking about Explorers when you were talking
really?
about Skeleton. Well, like, there's so many movies back then. You know, there's Explorers, there's Inner Space, there's Last Starfighter, there's the Goonies. Like all of those, they're all about becoming who you were meant to be, achieving a destiny. You were meant for something greater. There is magic in the world.
Looking at it from that perspective, Flameheart, and I'm going to tie this back to the story. Flameheart strives to be the king of the Sea of Thieves. And in the latest podcast, you guys posed some teases about potentially that being threatened by the GMU. And what I'm curious to kind of dive into is with A Pirate's Life, there were some really strong teases and threads that were created that posed the idea that Flameheart would have to answer to someone, and how would he deal with the captain making a return? Do you see that thread being pulled on in the near future, or is that still a story that is to be told at some point?
And people may beg to differ, playing the game currently and they don't feel it, but that story's always happening now. Like we're on that. If there were a main track that we're currently exploring, that is that track. Why does it? Well, Flameheart wants to become a king for a reason, to protect the freedom he sees as vital, which is kind of a reflection of his own background and upbringing, running with tyranny and control. That's what set him on that path. But the Dark Brethren are still out there, and what do they want that's different to Flameheart? That's all something that's playing out at the moment.
I think that's one of the things that I've been most interested in is the Dark Brethren, the sisters. It's the Warsmith and Duke and Amaranta have been such interesting characters because of their connection to Flameheart and their direct connection to the Sea of Thieves. It feels interesting that they are going, all of them feels like they've been shunned by someone, and as a result are looking for a way to have that sort of revenge. I'm very invested in when they do decide to make their return, and will the captain be the herald at the helm for them? Will they find their way on their own? Will Pendragon join them? How will that fall in with the prospects of the sovereigns still being these very kind of interesting characters with loose ties to the GMU with the rings? It's like there's so much between two different sects right now. It makes me wonder, like, will will that be something that gets to get explored soon, or is that because I feel like the Flame Heart in the Ancients is very immediate, and I feel like the Dark Brethren are kind of like on the cusp afterwards.
Almost like Duke, Wanda, Amaranta. It's like they're banished.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll find some kinship there on the waves. It's almost like history repeating itself, isn't it? From what happened a long time ago with all of these clues in the world.
Yeah.
But yes. And again, I'll take it right back to something I've said forever. The Golden Age of piracy is still to come. Not there yet. That's that story.
Interesting.
You can't have the Golden Age without the opposition.
It's funny because I would say that a lot of people would probably have viewed Athena and Reapers as the ultimate oppositions in Sea of Thieves.
Are they really that different?
Different as far as the overall goal.
Transformed in a different way, right? Like that whole the choices they have made have led the Pirate Lord to and his followers to kind of live this immortal life free from some of the curses, but they are of themselves cursed, but arguably in a more positive way. Whereas Flameheart's got where he would see it as positive, but in the eyes of the Pirate Lord, a negative way. But they're not that different. They both want the same thing, really.
Yeah, I think
it's the freedom of the pirate life. It's just the means in which they get there.
Does it feel weird to you at all, where Flameheart kind of hates the ideas of alliances, but is so willing to have an army at his command that he's willing to bury his followers for the right moment, the right time, and then bring them up, and then tell all of his followers, you have to be under me to be able to have true freedom, but you should consider each of your kin as equals.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the kind of human quality of it all, isn't it? You look back in real history, and it very much seems to be that way, doesn't it?
It does.
People who feel the most free are often the most ruled. But like Flameheart is freedom by fear, freedom ruled by force, whereas Ramsey's freedom ruled by a calling. I always say that they are two sides of the coin of freedom. They are two sides of the one. Well, I'm not sure whether the Pirate Lord could have ever been like Flameheart, but maybe he could have been closer if he'd had the upbringing that Flameheart had.
I think showing what you have shown with the story of DeMarco, which I still hope for the return of DeMarco. I understand like the comics have done a fairly good enough job of kind of telling like DeMarco and Lassetti's story, but I think had things gotten darker with his kids, there is very much a narrative path that could have taken Ramsey to a darker place, where he very much could have ended up like a Flameheart character or a Wrathbone character. It would not have been too difficult, because I think above all, he cherishes love in his family, and what he sees as his extended family is like the Pirates of the Sea of Thieves. Any wrong to them, and I think that it could have gotten dark if it needed to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Ramsey's all about family beyond family, united by a shared creed and rules. But yeah, he's literal blood. Having that happen to them. I mean, honestly, it's a good job. Good job. Sea of Thieves is not a linear narrative game. Honestly, it'd be a horror movie if you could play these out. I mean, I kind of say that jokingly, but I think that point of it's not a canned thing. Players have to interact with it, and there's some things that we do want to keep sacred. So, and many times my mind has gone down a route like that, where the Pirate Lord, something radical's got to happen with the Pirate Lord. This feels right for the storytelling, but the Pirate Lord is also symbolic of lots of things in the Sea of Thieves that we wouldn't want to take away. So, like, that's part of the challenge of a shared world live game, which is making broad strokes like that. Once they're gone, right? Because there's the present day in the Sea of Thieves today, and it reflects what's in it. If things that happen in the past are literally in the rearview mirror, it's not like replaying a single player game.
Yeah.
And you get to go through those beats again like a movie. So there's an added complexity to it, which should Sea of Thieves ever exist beyond the game would be opportunities.
Yeah.
But you'd still want whatever that was to tie into the shared world when people hopefully went to play it. But yeah, I like where your mind went there. Yeah, but I think the
Speaking,
point is they're not that different. They're not that different.
yeah.
Like,
Do you feel like you succeeded with that premise when you showed Duke for what he is and turned him into a Dark Lord and kind of moved him over to, because that was effectively, we are talking kind of a same character. Duke was very symbolic of the bilge rats and doing what you want, not being aligned to anyone, and through a very long kind of journey in his mind, he eventually found himself in a place where he was no longer the warm welcome in the tavern, or the kind of cherished character that a lot of people loved, and has now been kind of relegated to a much darker storyline. Do you feel like that do you feel like you're serving that character in a good way for character, like for character turns? Do you see where his story is playing out in the future, and that choice was the right choice to make?
I mean, I can see why you've gone there, because that is a similar journey that you talked about for the Pirate Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But we've done it with a character where it made more sense for that character, and you could see the Bills Rats and the Dark Brethren as, hey, they're different in some ways, but there's a lot of similarities in terms of a Bills Rats reject the order of a trading company, and they want the complete freedom to do what they want. The Bills Rats, like the Dark Brethren, is kind of the dark version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Where to not belong to the other groups, they kind of belong to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Duke. Tell you what gave me a thrill was seeing the community react to something as simple as seeing Duke and Wanda on the art for the Dark Fortress raids. That I was like, oh, that's good. Like,
Yeah.
still trigger something. But yeah, watch this space. I'm not going to say anything. But there's some near-term stuff. There's some near-term stuff with that.
I know. I am trying real hard to push you in places where I'm sure it's hard to talk about that, but I would be remiss if I didn't try and ask some hard questions that I know are probably going to get answers soon rather than later, but I don't want to go into that. So what do you say about shifting the topic over more to a design concept? And let's talk about tools, not rules. Because that's something that I feel like is been a mantra with Sea of Thieves ever since its inception, and feels very much like a code, not necessarily like something that is set in stone, ironically, given the terms themselves. But a lot of the stuff that gets brought to Sea of Thieves are features, mechanics, things that are meant to enrich the sandbox. And while there's always going to be trials and tribulations as things get opened up to the community, there's always going to be people who want some things over others. And to have this huge checklist of things that you want to bring to the game, looking at it now 8 years into the development of the game, how long is that list, and what are some of the things that you'd like to get into the game sooner rather than later?
That's the question, isn't it? This is going to sound bizarre, but I think the list we had at launch has just got longer and longer each year. Like, I don't feel like we're chipping away at that list at all. If anything, that list just keeps getting longer and changing and transforming. I think where I'm not deliberately not using this platform of your podcast to reveal certain things about the lore. Like, I want that to play out in the game as it was intended. Rather than kind of spoil it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's enough in what I've said for people to start putting the pieces together. I think when it comes to content, I think we've obviously poured a lot of tools, a lot of mechanics into that sandbox over the last 7 years. I mean, just if we were to stop adding things today, you could still make countless seasons by just moving the pieces around that are there, like refreshing certain things that haven't had a layer of love for many, many years. So I think the point for me is that already the sandbox is quite dense. There's a lot in that sandbox now. But there's still things that we haven't done that we want to do, that we want to serve. I think like the Devil's Roar in the early days was a really nice opportunity in that first year to expand the borders of the world and give people a new location.
Yeah.
I think part of the downside, we might have talked about this before, constantly expanding the world outwards, making that sandbox, the surface area of the sandbox, richer, bigger, is the ships on the server and maintaining a density of experiences.
Yeah.
Like they're like, as much as like we kind of know what the formula is in terms of if you add X square kilometers, you've got to add X ships, like what that equation is, because that's how the world was built. The size of the world is set up optimally
Yeah.
for 6 ships, but that's where your creative starts bumping into technical constraints.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they weren't. Can't do anything with that. And we can push against that and we can make improvements. There may be some wiggle room in the future, but I think I crave the new stages for gameplay. Being able to get outside of the existing world and offer up new world experiences.
Yeah.
That is incredibly time consuming to go build. And how we get to those experiences is also a consideration, because you can't just bolt it on to the side of the Sea of Thieves. It's got to be something a little bit more clever. But I think there's parts of the Sea of Thieves that players haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
There's experiences related to those parts that players haven't seen. And I think that's almost the ambitious future I'd like to believe we've got ahead, more than just continue to just pour more into the same sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more we can do, but it already feels quite full.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I remember our conversations quite a while ago. One of the direct questions I asked you was, when do you think you'll be done adding features? And at the time, you felt like there was no end, and that there was an infinite number of ideas to toss around to see what could actually come to the game. But there was no shortage of things that you could see coming down the pike. And some of the stuff that we talked about, it's actually come to the game. There's still some things that we talked about that have yet to actually come to the game. And I keep wondering, with all of the things that we do, as far as like features, whether it be weapons, tools, power progression within the world, there's always going to be things that are just kind of there and not really utilized as well. And I wonder, like, if instead of a new feature, there's been discussions within the team to go back and start taking a look at some of the things that could be iterated on to make them more engaged, or have that engagement rise with players, kind of like looking to have new experiences based off of old stuff.
Yeah, and I think game development is very challenging. I think we've done a reasonable job of adding new things pretty consistently.
Oh yeah,
we're very proud of the fact that Game Pass, buy it on Steam, you really don't have to spend any more money on Sea of Thieves. You really don't. Like, the whole game is there available to you. If you want to cosmetically look different, there are options, but that's completely optional. And it feels very much on the periphery of the core game experience, which, like, we feel really proud that we built the game we believe in, and it's been successful enough that we can keep building it and keep going. And that's what's led to the game we have today, and what hopefully will lead to the game we'll have in the future. So I think one of the things we've not done a good job of is when we've launched things that are kind of like an initial state that have got much more love and value to give to the sandbox. We've not done a good job of going back. And there's a lot of, you've got the core progression system in the game, and the path to Pirate Legend. It's so far out when you first start playing.
Yeah.
It isn't really a primary driver. Like, when you're playing the game early on, it really just play Sea of Thieves because you're having a great time.
Yeah.
And then, should you play and enjoy it long enough, you will become Pirate Legend. It's not really, I don't believe, what's driving your sessions, most players. But Pirate Legend as a concept, it's a great concept, and there's some cool gameplay experiences there, but there's so much more Pirate Legend can be. I think alongside the core progression journey, the pirate journey that players go on, you've obviously got the faction allegiance with Hourglass. You've got captaincy progression through the ships. You've got what we hope will continue to evolve as a platform for social play with guilds. And, like, these are huge systems that could serve up so many different experiences in and of themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, take guilds, for example, that just getting, it's like you're laying the track for a train that's already left the station. The game is out, so you're bolting on these core foundational systems for a game that's already live, which already bloats the time it's going to take to build anything. So our ultimate version of guilds in Airheads was you've got this social platform where you can get a guild together. There's a sense of a social group. You can share your fleet. You can share your progression. But then there's experiences that you and your guild can uniquely do that reflect your journey as a guild. We haven't done that bit yet. We haven't done that bit. And like the ship, like, wouldn't it be nice if there were, like, we've got the galleon archetype, we've got the brigantine archetype, we've got the solo sloop archetype. I still think there's a place for a true solo ship in Sea of Thieves that we've not built yet, but also variation of those different classes of those ships.
Oh yeah.
So it's more than just the base archetypes and other archetypes we could add. There's the whole kind of gameplay around the ships, which is kind of like for me, it's like the equivalent of levels and locations in other games. You know, in Sea of Thieves, you start in a random location every time you start. It's kind of session based in that nature, but the ship is your home. So having more gameplay and variety around the ships is a huge opportunity, even though you're still in the same sandbox doing the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a smattering of things, but that's years of work I've just talked about there.
Yeah.
Guilds, Hourglass, Captaincy, Pirate Legend. Like that, they're probably the main platforms for play that we've got factored into our plans going forward. That could do so much more, give people so much more fun and interest.
That's awesome. I think hearing that folks would have a little more play when it comes to how their ship looks, because I feel like genuinely, like, a lot of people like the cosmetics and they tend to find the ones that they want. And I think, like, for example, the captaincy has given us a great way to kind of craft a ship that we want and have it look and stay the same way that we want that ship to look, especially with like the trinkets and the trophies and stuff that we've earned over time. But having the ship as a class of ship still within the same play crew size, but just looking different or being a different style or adding a little bit of flavor. I think the Cannons of Rage is a great example of how will the meta of Sea of Thieves change with the introduction of cannons that can now be mounted in the fore and aft of a ship. And is that going to lend itself to opening up different types of ships and stuff like that? Additionally, the latest creations with the skeletons that you can now dig up and have as kind of AI helps. I am still of the mindset that these are going to continue to evolve as they have since A Pirate's Life, since the Burning Blade. And just tonight, I was using, just for fun, using the show map feature to the skeleton.
It's fun, isn't it? Like,
oh yeah, he's, I don't know, come over this way. Right here. It's great. And I think it would not only be a great tool as a permanent, and I joked about this on the last episode, but I was like, it would be great if I could have like an empty bone collar that I could uncork and I could throw at my little AI skeleton, and he would explode into a bunch of little bones and get sucked up into the bone collar. And then I would put him on my belt, and then I would go back to my ship. And when I was done, I would take it off my belt and throw it down, and he would pop back out and come help me out and around the island, and then rinse and repeat. But having AI characters is a really interesting approach to the game now that you guys have this introduced. Are you looking to expand that out, and are you looking to have that as something that would be a tool for something like Safer Seas, for people that want to play on bigger ships but don't have people to play with? Or are you looking to constantly drive people to other folks?
Think about be above that level of Hourglass Guild Captaincy, Pirate Legend. Think the core of the question you asked is like, well, what are the things we can go back to? I think I'd divide it into there's things around you as a pirate, there's things around the ships, there's things around the concept of crew, and there's things around the concept of world and what you can do in the world and your impact in the world. And I think even if I sidestep the question, I think the I don't think we've done a very good job with and this is me complaining about myself. I think we landed the concept of captaincy. We haven't really delivered that. The primary fantasy of captaincy is there's a captain associated with the ship. We did that bit. But there's a crew that have a role on that ship, and they are signed up on that ship, and that crew sail together. and become known together and get rewarded together. And I think that's the bit we don't really have.
Yeah.
Whether those crew are AI or real players is an opportunity. But I think that's the bit. Like if I were to, I think a lot about it. But if I was if we were pitching Sea of Thieves today,
Yeah.
with all the richness we could pitch it as a brand new game, you hadn't released the game yet, and you asked people, well, what do you think the journey in this game is going to be? I think a lot of players would say, well, I'm going to start the game on a small ship, and I'm going to become more known in the world. I'm going to make gold, and then I'll be able to recruit a crew, and I'll be able to go on adventures with that crew. And based on those adventures, we'll be able to get a better ship, and we'll have a ship that reflects the things that we want to do in the world.
Yeah.
And then eventually maybe we'll find a little place of our own in the Sea of Thieves. We'll have our own little hideout. Like those are, I'm not saying anything in terms of content roadmap, but I think that's what a player would expect. If having not played the game, before you get into, well, how do crews work and how does shared world balance work? But like just expectations of players, that's what I would expect. That'd be the journey I'd go on. I start on my own. There's a social element that gives me access to bigger and better ships, and those ships give me access to bigger and better opportunities in the world. And there needs to be a Sea of Thieves version of that, so not that linear. But I do think there's an opportunity with crew, whether player or AI. As that's a key pirate fantasy thing that we've not yet delivered. We've kind of played around with it a little bit, but we haven't done it justice yet. So I think there's two bodies of work. There's expanding the game beyond what it is now, and there's deepening the game that exists now, which is more the thing we're talking about now, which is the ship crew world opportunity.
Yeah. There's two mindsets that I have of that. It's I love the concept of future proofing the game for a possibility where folks are going to lose pirates are going to lose friends that they don't get to play with as much, but they still have their ship. They still want to sail with that. And I think with the advent of the AI's growth that we've seen with the skeletons and stuff, there's an opportunity to feel like it's like, okay, I have a couple AI skeletons, I can have them carry stuff. I can have them help me with treasure. They can man cannons. They can repair ships. The only thing we haven't figured out yet is ladders and bucketing. And I'm sure given enough time, we'll be able to get them to that point as well too. But it's one of those things where, because it's like, I don't know why my mind wants to push it this way, but having the world set up to be self-sustaining from a player perspective or a player population perspective affords, in my mind, the opportunity for the devs to go and craft that next iteration of Sea of Thieves, where the shroud shifts, the world changes, the players are still the same, the characters are still moving with it, but through some major climax with the story, something happens that pulls people through a situation where they are no longer found in a land where they know. And that would give the developers, like, because you could still have the world kind of transition, and continue on. We've got enough tools, we've got enough mechanics. We have, you tack on an extra 5 levels to the distinctions. I'm sure we'll be happy for quite a while, and go and build Sea of Thieves 2 with all the knowledge and learnings that you've taken from Sea of Thieves 1 in a new world with new islands, new lore, new discoveries, and bringing in fresh characters. Because I feel like the GMU, being who they are, want to pillage and plunder in their way what the Sea of Thieves is. And there's 2 outcomes to that. They either get repelled or they win. And there's an opportunity for them winning that would push Sea of Thieves in a different direction, that would afford you as a studio to explore the idea of what that would be. And that's like me kind of spitballing and having waking up from a dream in the middle of the night after having too much sugar kind of situation, because I know there's already another game in production at Rare, and that was always in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, well, as much as I think it would be cool to see where the world is going to go in the next 5 years, we still have Everwild kind of on the burner kind of cooking. So
you've answered your own question.
I
do
know.
realize you've answered your own question, which is, you said, oh, when I asked you these years ago, you said you'd never run out of ideas, and you've literally just given me another decade of work.
Yeah. So
But it's like, it is, I mean, whether you want to draw the line at, could there ever be another iteration of Sea of Thieves, and I think, or is it I mean, I like genuinely no thoughts there at all. But I like the idea. I'm not confirmed. I like the idea, and it would be not just me making a decision, but I like the idea of what we know as Sea of Thieves today can continue to evolve and morph into different experiences.
Yes.
That is lovely.
Yeah.
And there aren't many games where that's really happened. I mean, obviously
not well. I will say,
but not many. There's not many. But that feels like a nice potential future for us. But like you said, all of that roll call of stuff that you talked about, all that stuff is having your own crew, blowing out the scale of the world. I mean, these are, while continuing to keep a community playing, that gives you the privilege and the right to be able to do that. That's the key. Like we are still here. The game has become the game it's become because we have a community actively playing the game.
Yeah. Which
continues to fund development, which allows us to keep going. I mean, 7 years in, and it's gone past in the blink of an eye. So you can't just put the brakes on it and then disappear for another 5 years and come back and I was like, oh yeah, that game, forgot that game. Like, we've got to stay relevant and stay out there, but move towards that kind of future. I'm not confirming which. But,
right.
Like for me, you really eloquently made the point, which is the theme, Sea of Thieves as a place and all the experiences it could serve up to you. It is endless. It's absolutely endless. There's the version of the game it is today, and there's far more grander versions of that vision that we could build towards. And that's it. It's like, this is kind of Rare's vision of a pirate world for players to play. It's tough, right? I mean, you know as well, like Rare as a studio has got so many beloved IP. Sea of Thieves takes a lot of development time, but we're all so passionate about it, which is why we're so invested in it.
Yeah.
Because of everything you've just mentioned, it's like, wow, that's the kind of game I would have dreamed about as a kid.
Well, there's something magical about, as someone who was there from the betas. Obviously, I didn't know about it during like the alphas, otherwise I probably would have been there as well too. But knowing what I know of the world, I feel like I'm at the point where I've forgotten more about the game than I can recall off the top of my head. I've learned so much, and I'm so storied with the world, and it's like, you know, I one of the things that you've always talked about is the player's story, and having that as kind of the driving force behind why people want to jump into the world, and seeing how that plays out, whether it be through captaincy, whether it be through, you know, cosmetics, whether it be through, you know, reputations, things like that. I'm always interested to see where people have their own stories, their own characters and stuff like that. And with things changing the way they are with just the way that seasons have moved on, the way seasons have changed over time, I'm always kind of curious if there was ever a way we could either have things like I feel, because like right now my character is like masquerading as Pendragon, because my character just happens to look like him. And he's wearing a wig, and he's got like the nice new jackets on and stuff. And he grew out his mustache, and, you know, he's kind of like not necessarily Pendragon, but he wants people to think that Pendragon's still around. But is there a reason why things like, I guess like costume loadouts, how is that something that still eludes us? Is that more of like a technical challenge, or is that something that you guys feel like it's not quite where you want to go, or things of that nature? I think are ones that constantly come back, because as much as I would love to have multiple pirates, I don't see myself dedicating that much time because I'm so invested in my character story. But I would love to have ways to be able to shift my outfits and my look so that if I wanted to go and say like play the part of the cannoneer, it would be much simpler to go to a chest and pull out that costume as like a set piece for the role that I wanted to play that evening or things like that. So do you see ways to expand the role play for characters in Sea of Thieves?
I mean, that feature will be in the game. It's just a question of time, and I think it is being planned to be in the game multiple times, but then fallen off the list for the season for either it took too much of the lion's share of the work. I mean, it's kind of crazy, really. But anytime something hits UI or a user experience, things get quite costly quite quickly. Even though things can be kept really simple, there's accessibility, there's different display devices. Like anything UI related is quite challenging.
Yeah.
But it's still not a massive feature, really. I mean, where the feature would have been positioned has shifted a few times in our minds. Like I saw it initially as this is just, I've got these different role play personas I can save, and those are a costume loadout. But then, actually, maybe it would be really nice going back to not really exploring the idea of captaincy and the link to crew, of positioning more as like I'm a captain and I set the crew uniform, and there's different crew. And if you sail on my ship, like we wear the uniform, and there's a uniform for the different roles. And, like I kind of like that idea from a role play perspective. It's not quite hitting the kind of the value that you were looking for, but it will definitely happen. It's just when.
People would, I guarantee you, there would be a lot of love from captains who have their captaincy ship, and if they could dictate how their crew looked while sailing, there would be rolling of dice. There would be arguments about whose ship are we going to be sailing on tonight, because I don't want to look like a clown, or we're not all walking around with a breezy.
But it would be comedy gold. It would be hilarious.
It would be great. I would absolutely love that. Speaking of comedy, let's kind of end on the Reapers and where they're at right now with season 16. They've had a lot of introductions for voyages. They just had their reputations expanded. They're following more in line with the revamp that's happened. Was it season 13 that we got the captain's table revamp? Gosh, was it 11?
The diving.
Oh my
season
god.
11. Yeah.
God, that feels.
Season 12 was Horn of Fair Wind.
Oh, that's right. I was just yelling at my friend because we were diving and I'd found 2, and I was like, I still need these. Why are we diving? He's like, we prioritize. So, but looking at Reapers and how they've now fallen in line with the rest of the reputations, I'm constantly thinking about, one, are there reasons to go back to touch up on other factions, because there's voyages, especially with like the Hunter's Call event. I feel like there was the Merrick's kind of like cooking list that felt,
and that idea, that was one of the first ideas that we wanted for a Hunter's Call voyage. Was the idea of, here's the starter, here's the main, here's the dessert. It's a recipe list. And we had ideas to bring it in as like you'd have a new cooking pot on the stove, and it'd be like a broth. You'd have to make a broth. So I don't know. I'm spoiling what we might do in the future now. I still love this idea. There's a cooking pot. There's a broth. And it's like, you need a kind of you need an oil hopper. You need a trophy splash towel and a pinch of gunpowder and some wood flakes. And it's like a cauldron for all the ingredients in Sea of Thieves. But different recipes can create different effects. So obviously some are really good at restoring health, buffing up your kind of secondary health radial. Some might attract certain creatures because of the smell that they give off. So some might make it more likely that a megalodon would spawn. The cooking pot is like a bucket. It's also boiling, so you could throw it on people as a weapon, like blind them with the broth, but also sneak a broth on someone's ship and hide it under the stairs or something, and then a megalodon attacks them. But all through this kind of Hunter's Call cooking/crafting system.
I love that. That's a
I want to do that.
Idea.
I want to.
Please.
Like that idea for the live event was, let's use a little bit of the surface level of, let's present the voyage as a menu of options. But I mean, that's funny enough. When planning out future seasons, I've been trying to crowbar that in there. It's like, this doesn't quite align with the theme of this season, but can I kind of get it in there?
Yeah.
I love that. I think that concept could be as kind of light touch as it was in the live event, brought back and just made more replayable as part of the voyage, or a more fully fledged version with a broth segment.
I mean, the broth idea is fantastic, and if there was any way that Robin could recreate like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, like little music that gets made whenever you're cooking a meal, I would sit through that for sure. Anything he makes. But I wanted to touch on Reapers because we have.
Yeah, sorry,
no
tangent.
No, it was a fantastic tangent because it was one of those things in the event. I'm like, why isn't this part of the normal Hunter's Call? Like, it feels so.
We'll get it in there.
Good.
Cool.
But I saw recently that you were talking with folks online about how the Reapers only have 1 point of turn in at the moment. The Reapers hideout is kind of this main thing. And you talked about how you thought it was deserved that they might have another one at some point. And I 100% feel like Sea Dog's Tavern is the appropriate place for that, just because it's like right there. So it makes, I mean, how can you get more central?
Bit close to the Reaper's hideout, though, isn't it? I'm not sure.
But that's
because I kind of agree with the response from. I kind of agree from the response from people that. And again, I deliberately didn't respond. I was like, "Oh, I've started something now. I don't want. I'll end up just giving the game away to reassure people." But I think Reaper's Hideout is powerful. It is a choke point in the world. It's a PvP choke point. Quite hard to offload the treasure there. That was all deliberate. That was all designed. There's no plans to add quick sell options, to add sovereigns there, to add harpoons. Like, it is designed to be a tricky point for cashing in. Treasure. Going back to your previous question to loop this back in of areas that are underserved, like, I feel increasingly uncomfortable, as the design team will know, with how much we have underserved the Devil's Roar.
Yes.
I think whether the balance is right or not in terms of the geysers and the earthquakes and the eruptions, well, that's all something we can go tweak. But I think that the idea of a place that you go there and you get extra reward for taking on more threat, and I think it's such a cool location. Even after all these years, after spending hundreds of hours there, I still get surprised how good it looks. It's atmosphere there.
Amazing.
It's got so much more love to give. So yeah, I think Reapers cash in Devil's Roar. I think Devil's Roar.
Now
we'd want to give you multiple options, but maintain the PvP choke point.
I'm gonna throw it out there and just say that Morrow's Peak is an interesting location. It tends to be some halfway between Galleon's Grave and Ancient Spire. It's not too far from Molten Sands Fortress, but the distance between Morrow's Peak and Reapers, I think there's something to say about Mercy's End being like right in between. But I do feel like with Morrow's Peak, you talked about how it was interesting having player choice, having another event for the community to decide, does Morrow's Peak get attacked? Does it get turned and give the players another opportunity? It's like, this could become, you could save it. It could still be Morrow's Peak, but if it doesn't go well, it could turn into a Reaper's location. Maybe even reactivate the volcano. Maybe that's how you scare off the denizens at the outpost.
What I will say is that the story thread that we're currently pulling on with the banished ancient, that thread takes us into the Devil's Roar and the secrets. The Devil's Roar is still high. More the Devil's Roar is the way.
I mean, I'm still waiting for us to go back to the shores of gold.
Me too. Me too.
For those just listening, Mike made a very precarious face, and no,
we need to be careful. I mean, part of the magic of the Shores of Gold, you get there, and you unless there's a complete freak of nature, you're there alone. So the sense of solitude you feel is part of its joy. Like, you've reached this fabled island in the Shroud. So I think we've thought long and hard about how we preserve that for players and it doesn't matter how many players are playing that tall tale.
Yeah.
Like, if one person wants to go play through that story, we want to give them a fantastic time.
Yeah. No, that's
right. Is that a cough then? No
worries.
But I think the Shores of Gold as a location got a lot more to give, and there's still things to be found.
I think that would be fantastic. I am a big proponent of pushing more stuff out to the Devil's Roar. I think there's been a couple events in the past where like the roar went silent and people went out there, and it was fantastic because it's not as big as people really probably perceive it to be as in their mind. It is very easy to run into other ships over there and kind of see like who maybe skirts the outside rim to kind of stay from the inner workings of it. But I would love for us to have a renewed interest in the Roar. And I think given the nature of the Herald of Flame, Heart of Fire, the history that's been tied to Reapers intrinsically with like Flame Hearts, the like kind of burial at one point, where he was stored. I think that there's a great story to be told in that area that I think would be nice for folks to kind of get pushed out there. So I 100% support that. There's a lot that I keep thinking about that I want to push in, but I know you've got the rest of your workday and it's a Friday for you. So I can imagine you probably got a lot going on that you want to kind of catch up with folks, but I have to ask on behalf of Deadeye Dre, who I can't reveal how I know this, but it would be.
This is a question. If this is a question, it's going to be a brethren question. But if it's something else, that's fine.
I actually asked Dre for a few questions if they had a couple, but I figured I would pick the one that I was most interested in, which is what's your opinion on Linkin Park?
Oof! Wow, up there with the best question anyone has asked me. There was a time when I liked a few of their tracks, but never really connected with me personally. I'm not sure if that's breaking any hearts out.
I'm
that
sure
feels really when you say Linkin Park, I get time traveled back to, it was the 90s, right? Was it early 2000s?
I think it was early 2000s when I was like dyed in the wool fan going in there. I mean, Meteora was an amazing album for me, but that was one of those things where it's like Chester was just, like, fantastic voice and stuff, made some amazing music back then, but
did have an amazing voice.
It was one of those things. I personally was very sad when we lost him, and having the new lead singer feels odd to me, but this was Dre's question, so I don't want to put any.
You're asking the wrong person in the Chapman household. That's the question from my wife. Like she loved Linkin Park back in the day.
Very interesting. At some point, maybe I will actually get to ask her about that. I will instead pose the question. How are you feeling about Gears of War as a franchise?
Oof, these are good questions. I like these hard-hitting questions. Not hard-hitting questions. It's just an interesting one I didn't expect. I loved the original trilogy, Gears of War. Had a great time playing through those many times. It was insane. Was it insane? The hardest difficulty? I think it was
that's
insane.
a good question.
Yeah, because obviously Legendary was obviously Halo. I think it was on insane difficulty. So yeah, I played them all through on that and in co-op. And I enjoyed 4 and I enjoyed 5. But
noticeably leaving Judgment out of this list.
I forgot. Judgment was one I didn't complete Judgment. They've got Reloaded coming out, isn't it? The new one.
And we got E-Day at some point.
I'm looking, with the prequel. So yeah, looking forward to playing through those. I think some of the more horror aspects of the original, love them to go back to some of that. I think the first one's probably still my favorite. I mean, that was a magical time, a long time ago on the 3. But that was a magical time.
Speaking of magical,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. I was gonna say.
No, I love really enjoy the franchise. I think it's kind of keeping that core gameplay while still taking it to new places. I think the kind of door they were knocking on in Gears of War 5, where you had the expected Gears of War levels, and then you had the kind of semi-open world sections, I thought were really interesting.
Oh yeah.
And like, funny enough, I remember playing through that, thinking back to remember Uncharted 4, Uncharted Lost Legacy. They had these kind of open world sections. I thought is really interesting. In terms of a tight third-person action adventure shooter in the case of Gears of War, taking that model. There's something in that, definitely something.
Yeah. And then my last question, I was scrubbing through your history on Xbox, so forgive me if this isn't up to date.
Okay.
How are you? Or have you finished South of Midnight yet?
I haven't. I
Mm,
haven't. I need to. Well, so many games have come out.
I know, it's
So
insane.
at the midnight, then there was like a roll, wasn't there? There was Oblivion remastered.
Oh yeah,
Doom: The Dark Ages has just come out.
yeah.
Um,
Before that was Indiana Jones, which
Indiana Jones, which are obviously Christmas and just beyond. So yeah, I was really enjoying South of Midnight.
mm,
Particularly, I love the music. It's just a whole vibe playing that game.
yeah.
But yeah, I need to go back to it. I was really enjoying it. I was actually thinking about that last night while I purchased RoboCop Rogue City for a little kind of comfort gameplay, because I read the reviews and I was like, "This is incredible!" Like a double A, whatever the term.
Yeah.
Like, this is a great
man.
game. And yeah, so I downloaded that and played that for a couple of hours. Like, wow, this is awesome. Not felt for a long time. This is fantastic, and the music kicks in.
Oh man.
So yeah, I've got too many games on the board at the moment. But South of Midnight, I was actually thinking of going back to that this week. Forgot.
I would love to talk with you at some point about South of Midnight and just the world and the magic and stuff, because there's something about that game that when I was playing through it, I was like, man, this is like a Chapman game if I ever played one.
That's interesting that you say that. I don't know what is that makes you think that, because there is something about South of Midnight that speaks to me very deeply. I think it's the talking catfish.
I mean, yeah, catfish is fantastic. There's something about Hazel being so grounded in her life and understanding things so well and feeling frustrated with what's going on in her real life, that when disaster happens, the call to action comes and she's out to go rescue her mom, and then gets pulled into this fantastic world that she has no concept of and rolls with it. She rolls with it so well and commands presence when she's not going to let people walk over her, but it pulls into a world that has characters that she's familiar with but not familiar with, but uncovering the story behind there is part of the allure to the game. And there's something about you being such a fantastic storyteller and kind of building worlds and stories with Sea of Thieves that I'm like, it's all in one. It has music, it has atmosphere, it has character, it has emotion. And those are all things that I really love about what you bring with to Sea of Thieves, that I'm like, this feels like a Chapman experience to me. I've seen it in the Tall Tales.
You've spoken very elegantly about the game there. And like there is something about the game that speaks to me. And it is the Southern Gothic Wizard of Oz. It's the ordinary person thrust into a world of magic that's familiar yet different. Yeah, it's beautiful. I just don't feel fully qualified to talk about its deeper themes until I've progressed. And I'm trying to think where I've got to. I'm just on the two-toed Tom.
Yeah, two-toed Tom.
The alligator. So yeah, I'm on that boss fight. That's where I left it. So I'm not sure how far that is in.
Very early. Very early.
So I've got a long way to go.
It's not a terribly long game. I would say 10 to 15 hours is the length of it. But the emotional story that you go through. Two-Toe Tom was a fantastic story because it revealed a couple characters and some of the history behind it without getting too deep. I feel like the Benji story to me like ripped my heart out. Like I was like, why did you guys put this as the first one? Because having him trapped in the tree was just like, it was hard. I can't wait for you to get further in the story with some of the other characters that are, it's fantastic storytelling because it challenges your perception of what you are expecting in certain ways that make you kind of like, okay, maybe there's a misjudgment here. Maybe we don't look at the cover of the book. Maybe we open it up and read through it. And I feel like there's a depth there that I appreciate when I think about characters like Belle, like Pendragon, like DeMarco, Ramsey. You know, will I ever get to find out what those 3 daggers are from in his back? I don't know, but eventually I checked.
How amazing it would be to make a game like that, though. I'm so kind of got so much admiration for the Compulsion Games team, to be able to weave a tale like that.
Yeah.
But the things we can do with Sea of Thieves that are different, right? Like the you can reach so many more people with a kind of shared world, live multiplayer, always on game. But yeah, there must be it'd be lovely to just make a game like that. Kind of just a create a complete creative work as a singular experience. Like
I mean, I like I'm gonna press back and say that's what I loved about Pirate's Life. That's what I loved about Anniversary.
I guess that was kind of the energy going into it. And I often think wow, 10 years working on the same game, but it kind of feels like there's multiple games within that game.
100%
along the way. That's what it feels like.
There are 100%. Like there are full like 10 to 15 hour stories that you could get out of the Tall Tales from Anniversary Edition, from Pirate's Life, from Monkey Island. Like there's very much like you guys have made games outside of just Sea of Thieves that just happen to be in Sea of Thieves at this point. And it's fantastic to see that. I think that's why a lot of folks that I talk to are excited about the prospect of another set of Tall Tales, whether it be a tie-in with One Piece or Peter Pan. You know, we've had so many illusions and so many dreams and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna pull on those strings because I'm already well past like where I should be letting you go at this point. But it's very much of that sense. It's like I'm looking forward to where that next spark of imagination leads you and where you take it.
I mean, there is that energy taken into like Shores of Gold was very different to A Pirate's Life that followed it. Monkey Island was very different to following A Pirate's Life. There's always even though they are tall tales, there's always like, what's the focus of the gameplay? What's the spin we can put on it that feels different? Shores of Gold was kind of classic Sea of Thieves puzzle solving, but with a narrative spin. And again, basing it in a classic Sea of Thieves pirate story of reaching an island somewhere in the Shroud. Pirate's Life was, well, we've got to take the cinematic flair of the IPs, right? We've got to give you that cinema feel of you're inside a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And then Monkey Island was, well, that's clearly a point and click opportunity. Like whether we'll ever do this, and I always loved the idea of doing something more. Almost gave in on A Pirate's Life, and it was the right thing not to do it, but more of a kind of not like it's going to sound like Legend of Monkey Island. It's not, but more of a kind of Metroidvania style approach.
Okay,
like I'd love to explore that as a platform for story in the Sea of Thieves.
Interesting.
Almost like there's not multiple tales. There's more layers based on completing narratives and stories. Whether that could be packaged correctly in Sea of Thieves, I haven't put enough thought into it. But yeah, I always thought that was kind of the next opportunity, was to do something more Metroidvania style. But
interesting.
Maybe we won't do that at all. Maybe we'll go back to some of the.
Well, I will say that you have accomplished parts of that during the mystery of DeMarco's death. Very much like Living World, and it was a whole system that you talked about bringing to light where you could turn things on based on how things progressed with the community. Very much in the case with the lantern, it's like there were things that weren't on that were completely gated to if you had that Fallen Sea Dog lantern. Similarly, there were gates and layers built in for Glitterbeard, and I think that you guys very easily could expand upon that, build out how that system works. For me, it's I always try to keep in the back of my mind, how approachable will it be for folks that are fresh to the game. Very much in the same vein that I think like right now I'm struggling with some of the new commendations for season 16 being locked behind the skeleton curse. I worry, will it be difficult for players to surface things like the storytelling of a Metroidvania in the game, akin to how easy is it for folks to get generous gifts right now to be able to have someone turn them in, or how in 3 seasons how easy will it be for folks to steal the skull from the widow sarcophagus kind of from other players in the future. Things like that are always kind of rattling around in my brain, because I'm always cognizant that there will be new players. We will always have fresh pirates. There's always going to be, if and when it ever happens, I'm sure people coming into Sea of Thieves from a Switch 2 would be kind of fresh for everyone to kind of get a chance to actually see like what's going on with Sea of Thieves and actually get access to that game. But are they going to be able to find some of the cool little secrets or cool story plots within it if there isn't a Sherpa right there? And I think that's it's hard as a live service to try and service everyone and make sure that they're all happy about that. But having a story told through a Metroidvania would be very, very interesting to see like how you could implement that in a way that still
make it work for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just no more rock spires.
No more rock spires.
No, please. Yeah. Mike, I've kept you on for a long time, and I know you got a rest of your day. I just want to thank you for spending the time with me. It's so good to catch up with you and chat with you again, and hopefully we get to do this again sometime in the future.
No, likewise. It's a pleasure as always. It just feels like a chat, which is, I guess, what every great podcast is. But, testament to the fact that I didn't even know the podcast had started. It just felt like we picked up from where we left off last time. So yeah, that was great. I mean, again, I felt like we've had a 15-minute chat, and yeah, I really do need to drive into the studio now.
Well, anyone that you happen to see on the Friday, feel free to let them know that I appreciate their efforts and that I hope they're doing well, and I miss them, and that I look forward to seeing with them. And if you happen to find Adam and Pete, if you could maybe use some sort of force to get them to push out that promised, well, I don't know about promised, but that controller that they wanted to put out.
Yeah, I got two bits. So there's the controller thing I need to talk about with Adam and Pete, and there's also the bit you said you want my name to come first.
Yeah,
I got
definitely.
That's what you said, right? That's what I heard.
It's definitely in the audio. Yeah. Make sure Chapman's on the bill. That's all I'm saying. That and the statues. Where are my statues at? I have space. I need statues for, but
I know. I'm with you on that one.
All in due time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for giving me as much time as you have and giving to the game so that we have something to talk about on a weekly cadence.
Long may it continue.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, pirates, that's going to do it for this episode of the Keelhauled podcast. Last weekend, I forgot to do an outro. I got distracted, and I'm not going to say whose fault it is, but they know. Well, they don't. They may not know, but they should after hearing this. If they're listening, maybe. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I hope you enjoyed that interview. If you do, again, please make sure you shout out to Rare. Let them know how much you appreciate them doing this for me. It is not something they have to do. But it is very appreciated that they are willing to do it, because it's nice to have these long form insight conversations with people at the studio to speak on some of the things that I think a lot of the community members want to know about. I am still looking to try and get Drew Stevens on an episode. I want to interview him. I've got a lot of questions for him. And a lot of them are ones that's better than, how come the game isn't like this? And, other stuff like that I won't bother going into. I really genuinely want to give folks an opportunity to get to know who he is a little bit. I also want to get to know why he kind of stepped up in October of last year to kind of take on the head of taking on the hot topics, as it were. And also just to kind of find out like what are some of the biggest issues that they run into on a regular cadence when it comes to developing for Sea of Thieves. Building out seasonal content is not easy, with multiple teams playing with different tools and trying to test those out and make sure that there aren't issues. I can imagine there is a plethora of issues that we never hear about that are constantly taken care of before it actually even makes it to insiders. But information like that is kept secret behind the doors over at Rare Studios. And I would love to be able to get an opportunity to talk with Drew about that, about so many other things. So if that is something you want to hear about, take a note from Godhammer, who reached out to Jotaro on social media and said, hey, it'd be super cool if Mike Chapman did an interview with CaptainLogun. That'd be great. And that helped push with me being able to get this interview. So if you want to have Drew, I would urge you, let Rare know. Let Rare know that that's something that you want to hear about and that you want to have a community member reach out and actually have this conversation with him. So it does help. But I understand too, if you don't want to get on social media, it's scary. There's a lot of weird stuff, but there are cat memes. There's really good cat memes out there. So with that, pirates, thank you. I love you. And I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.